The canine unit charged toward a pregnant woman and barked ferociously, sending the entire airport into a panic. Every eye turned to the woman, hearts racing with worry for her safety. But the truth that followed would shake the United States to its core. A chilling plot so cunning and ruthless it could only come from the darkest corners of a Russian mafia. Gate 17 at JFK International Airport was a symphony of chaos. It was November 23, 2025, 3 days before Thanksgiving, and the terminal buzzed with travelers dragging suitcases, kids whining, and gate agents barking boarding calls. Overhead, a robotic voice droned, "Flight 214 to Chicago, now boarding." Amid the frenzy, one sound sliced through the noise like a knife, the guttural, relentless bark of a dog. Shadow, a German shepherd with a coat like midnight and eyes that burned with focus, stood rigid at the security checkpoint. His hackles raised, his teeth flashed, and his barks ricocheted off the glass walls like gunfire. Passengers froze, their gazes locked on the target of his fury, Emily Carter, a woman who appeared 8 months pregnant, her hands trembling as she clutched her swollen belly. Beside her, a man in a tailored blazer, Vincent Russo, posing as her husband, gripped her arm, his face a mask of forced calm. The crowd whispered, phones raised to capture the scene. "What's wrong with that dog?" "She's pregnant, leave her alone." But Shadow's barks grew louder, more desperate, as if he alone could see the invisible threat. Mike Sullivan, a 35-year-old TSA officer, held Shadow's leash with a steady hand. A black man with the stature of a Marine and the quiet intensity of someone who'd seen combat, Mike had spent 5 years at JFK, catching smugglers, liars, and once, a guy with a live tarantula in his backpack. But Shadow's behavior was new. This wasn't just alertness, it was a warning, primal and urgent. Mike's dark eyes scanned Emily, her pale face framed by messy brown hair, her blue eyes wide with terror. Vinny stepped forward, his voice smooth as silk. "Officer, this is a misunderstanding. My wife's pregnant, just nervous about flying. You know how it is." Mike didn't buy it. Vinny's charm was too polished, his eyes too sharp. "Step aside, sir," Mike said, his tone like granite. He signaled to his partner, Officer Maria Ramirez, to check their IDs. The crowd's murmurs grew louder, some sympathetic, others indignant. Harassing a pregnant woman, typical TSA? Mike ignored them. Shadow had sniffed out C4 in a diplomat's luggage last year. If he was this fixated, something was deadly wrong. Emily's voice quavered. "Please, I just want to see my mom in Chicago for Thanksgiving. I don't know why he's barking." Her hands cradled her belly, and for a moment, Mike hesitated. Accusing a pregnant woman could tank his career. But Shadow lunged, only stopped by Mike's grip, his nose twitching toward Emily's midsection. Mike's gut churned. "Ma'am, we need a secondary screening," he said, keeping his voice even. He led Emily and Vinny to a private booth, Shadow trailing, still growling. Ramirez radioed for backup, and the scanner operator, Jenkins, whispered to Mike, "The body scanner's showing something in her abdomen, not a baby." Jenkins swallowed hard. "Looks mechanical." Mike's pulse spiked. Mechanical? In a pregnant woman's belly? He glanced at Emily, now seated, her hands shaking. Vinny stood nearby, his eyes flicking to the exit like a cornered animal. "Stay sharp, Shadow," Mike murmured. Whatever this was, it was bigger than Gate 17. In the screening booth, under glaring fluorescent lights, Emily sat, her breathing ragged. A female TSA officer, Linda Carter, no relation, prepared a pat-down, but Shadow wouldn't calm down. He strained toward Emily, his growls low and menacing. Linda ran a handheld scanner over Emily's belly. It screeched, a piercing alarm that made everyone flinch. "Ma'am, explain this," Linda said, her voice tight. Emily's eyes brimmed with tears. "I'm pregnant, that's all. You're scaring me and my baby." But her voice broke, and Mike caught a glance she shot at Vinny, not love, but dread. Vinny stepped in, his charm cracking. "This is outrageous. We're American citizens and my wife's pregnant. You've got no grounds." "Back off," Mike snapped, his Marine training cutting through. He nodded to Ramirez, now joined by two armed TSA officers. "We're taking her for a medical scan. You wait here." Vinny's jaw twitched, but he nodded, his hands balling into fists. Mike noticed the glint of a high-end smartwatch on Vinny's wrist, oddly out of place for a supposed middle-class husband. As Emily was escorted to the medical bay, Mike's mind raced. Shadow's reaction, the scanner's alert, Vinny's nerves, it screamed trouble. He recalled an FBI briefing about Blackhawk, a Russian mafia-turned-terror syndicate known for smuggling high-tech weapons through surgical implants. Their devices were tiny, deadly, and nearly undetectable. Was Emily their mule? And if so, what was Vinny's role? In the medical bay, Dr. Annika Patel, a no-nonsense physician, ran an ultrasound on Emily, with TSA officers and Shadow watching. Emily lay on the table, sobbing quietly. Shadow sat by the door, his growls softer but persistent. The ultrasound screen flickered and Patel's face went ashen. "This isn't a fetus," she said, her voice barely audible. "It's a device." She paused, her eyes wide. "Metallic, wired, the size of a walnut, embedded in her abdominal cavity." Mike's heart thudded. "A bomb?" he asked, keeping his voice low. Patel shook her head. "Not a bomb, but a detonator. It could trigger something bigger remotely. I've never seen tech this advanced." She zoomed in on the screen, revealing a tiny circuit board, its edges surgically sealed. Emily's sobs grew louder. "I didn't know what it was," she whispered. "They said they'd kill my brother Jake if I didn't do it. They cut me open in a warehouse, told me it was temporary. I thought it was drugs." Her hands covered her face, her body shaking. Mike knelt beside her, his voice soft but urgent. "Who's they, Emily? Give me names." Her eyes darted to the door as if Vinny could hear. "Blackhawk," she choked out, her voice trembling. "They're Russian. They have Jake in a basement somewhere in Queens. They said if I got this through JFK, they'd let him go. Please save him." Mike's blood ran cold. Blackhawk. The syndicate had been on the FBI's radar for years. Arms trafficking, cyber attacks, now this. He looked at Shadow, whose ears were perked, as if sensing the danger. "We'll find Jake," Mike promised, though he knew the odds were brutal. This wasn't a single smuggler, it was a terror plot, and Emily was a pawn in a much larger game. Back at Gate 17, Vinny was sweating. Ramirez had cuffed him after finding a burner phone and a smartwatch in his jacket. Mike returned, Shadow at his side, and held up the phone. "Talk, Russo," he said, his voice like steel. The phone's screen showed a decrypted text. "JFK drop in place. LAX, O'Hare next. Raven green lights." The smartwatch, when scanned, revealed a microchip, a secondary trigger for the detonator in Emily's belly. Mike's stomach twisted. LAX, O'Hare. Blackhawk wasn't just hitting JFK, they were targeting America's entire aviation network. And Raven? That had to be their leader, a ghost even the FBI couldn't pin down. Mike radioed Sarah Nguyen, an FBI agent he trusted, her Vietnamese-American roots giving her a sharp edge in terror cases. "Sarah, we've got Blackhawk at JFK, detonator inside a civilian, and they're planning more. I need your team here, stat." As Sarah mobilized, Mike noticed the smartwatch buzzing. A new message flashed. "Sullivan's close. Abort JFK. Raven's watching." Mike froze. They knew his name? How? Was there a mole in TSA? Shadow whined, nudging his leg as if urging him to move. Mike thought of his sister in Brooklyn, the people on those planes, and Emily's brother trapped somewhere in Queens. This was personal now. But the biggest shock was yet to come. In the medical bay, Patel ran a deeper scan on Emily's device. "Mike," she whispered, "this detonator." She hesitated, her voice tight. "It's not just for bombs. It's wired to hack air traffic control. If it goes off, every plane in the Northeast could crash." The air in JFK's medical bay was thick with tension. Emily Carter lay on a hospital bed, her face pale, her hand still trembling from the ultrasound that had revealed the truth. A high-tech detonator, surgically implanted in her abdomen, capable of hacking air traffic control and crashing every plane in the Northeast. Mike Sullivan, the TSA officer who'd trusted his canine partner Shadow's relentless barks, stood by her side, his mind racing. Black Hawk, a Russian mafia-turned-terror syndicate, had orchestrated this nightmare, and their leader, a ghost known only as the Raven, was pulling the strings. But the burner phone in Mike's hand, taken from Vinny Russo, held a clue that could lead them to Emily's brother Jake and to the heart of Black Hawk's plan. Mike's radio crackled. "Sullivan, it's Sarah Nguyen. FBI's landing at JFK in 10. We've got a location from Russo's phone, a warehouse in Queens 3 miles out. Meet me at the tarmac." Sarah, a Vietnamese-American agent with a razor-sharp mind, had cracked terror cases from Boston to Baghdad. If anyone could help Mike unravel Black Hawk, it was her. He looked at Shadow, whose ears twitched, ready for action. "Let's move, boy," Mike said, his voice steady despite the storm in his chest. Emily's words echoed. "They have Jake, in a basement in Queens." Time was running out. At the airport security office, Vinny Russo sat cuffed to a chair, his polished charm replaced by a sheen of sweat. Officer Ramirez leaned against the wall, arms crossed, while Mike loomed over Vinny, holding the burner phone. "You're in deep, Russo," Mike said, his voice low. "This text, JFK drop in place, LAX, O'Hare next, says you're not working alone. Who's Raven and what's Black Hawk planning?" Vinny smirked, but his eyes betrayed fear. "You're fishing, Sullivan. I'm just a guy helping his wife catch a flight." Mike slammed the phone on the table, making Vinny flinch. "Your wife has a detonator in her gut, and your smartwatch has a chip to trigger it. Start talking or you're looking at Gitmo." Shadow growled from the corner, his eyes locked on Vinny's wrist, where the watch still ticked. Vinny's smirk faded. "You don't get it, do you? Black Hawks everywhere. They've got people in your TSA, your FBI, maybe even your mom's book club. You bust me, they'll still hit LAX, O'Hare, every airport on the map." His voice trailed off, and Mike caught the slip. "People in TSA? A mole?" He leaned closer, his face inches from Vinny's. "Give me a name or Shadow gets a new chew toy." Vinny swallowed hard, then muttered, "Check the warehouse. Pier 12, Queens. That's all you get." Mike exchanged a glance with Ramirez. It matched the phone's GPS data, but Vinny's words gnawed at him. A mole in TSA. Who could he trust? The Queens waterfront was a maze of rusting piers and abandoned warehouses, shrouded in fog rolling off the East River. Mike and Shadow arrived in an unmarked TSA van, joined by Sarah Nguyen and a 6-man FBI tactical team. Sarah, in a black windbreaker, studied the warehouse through binoculars. "Thermal shows 3 heat signatures inside," she said. "Could be guards, could be Jake. Your dog ready for this, Sullivan?" Mike patted Shadow's flank. He was born for it. Shadow's nose twitched, already picking up a scent. Mike's heart pounded, not from fear, but from the weight of what they might find. Bombs, hostages, or a trap? He thought of his sister, Tasha, back in Brooklyn, and the promise he'd made after the Marines. "No one dies on my watch. Not Jake, not anyone." The team breached the warehouse, flashlights cutting through the dark. Crates were stacked high, labeled with Cyrillic script Russian. Shadow froze, his hackles rising, and let out a low growl. Mike signaled the team to halt. "What is it, boy?" he whispered. Shadow's nose led them to a crate, its lid slightly ajar. Sarah pried it open, revealing a dozen sleek metallic devices, each the size of a grapefruit, wired with blinking LEDs. "Holy hell," Sarah breathed. "These are EMP bombs. One of these could knock out JFK's radar for days." Mike's stomach dropped. Electromagnetic pulse bombs could cripple air traffic control, grounding planes or worse, causing collisions. And if Black Hawk had more, LAX and O'Hare were next. Shadow whined, nudging a second crate. Mike opened it, finding a laptop with a blinking screen. The display showed a map of U.S. airports, red dots pulsing at JFK, LAX, O'Hare, and Atlanta. A timer ticked down, 48 hours until Thanksgiving Day. "They're planning a coordinated hit," Mike said, his voice tight. Sarah nodded, her face grim. "This is Black Hawk's endgame: paralyze America's skies, tank the economy, sow chaos. We need to find Jake and shut this down." Back at JFK's medical bay, Emily sat under Dr. Patel's care, an IV dripping to stabilize her after the trauma of the ultrasound. Her hands still shook, but her eyes burned with resolve. A TSA officer, Linda, sat nearby, taking notes. "Emily, anything you remember about Black Hawk could save your brother," Linda said softly. "Any names, voices, anything." Emily's voice was barely a whisper. "There was a call in the warehouse where they cut me open, a man's voice, deep, like gravel. He called himself the Raven. He said," she paused, her breath hitching. "He said, 'The senator will clear the way.' I don't know who he meant, but he sounded in control, like he owned everyone." Linda's pen froze. A senator? Black Hawk had connections that high? Emily's eyes filled with tears. "They showed me a video of Jake, tied up, bleeding. They said if I didn't get the device through JFK, they'd—" She couldn't finish. Linda squeezed her hand, but her mind raced. The Raven, a senator, a nationwide plot. This was bigger than anyone had imagined. In the Queen's warehouse, Shadow's ears perked, his body tensing. Mike noticed, signaling the team to go silent. A faint shuffle came from the shadows, then the glint of a gun. "Ambush!" Sarah yelled, diving behind a crate. A Black Hawk operative, clad in black, opened fire, bullets sparking off metal. The FBI team returned fire, but the operative was fast, slipping into the maze of crates. Mike unleashed Shadow. "Go, boy!" The German shepherd shot forward, a blur of muscle and teeth. A scream echoed as Shadow tackled the operative, pinning him to the ground. Mike rushed over, cuffing the man whose face was scarred and grim. "Where's Jake Carter?" Mike demanded, his voice like thunder. The man spat, saying nothing, but Shadow growled, sniffing the man's jacket. Mike searched it, finding a key card with the Black Hawk logo, a Black Hawk clutching a red star. Sarah scanned the key card with a handheld device. "It's coded for a basement level," she said. "There's more to this place than we thought." Mike's pulse raced. Jake was close, but so was danger. Shadow whined, his nose pointing to a steel door at the warehouse's rear. Whatever was behind it, Black Hawk didn't want them to find. As Mike and Sarah prepared to breach the door, Mike's radio buzzed. It was Ramirez back at JFK. "Sullivan, we cracked more of Russo's phone. There's a new message from Raven." Ramirez's voice shook. "It says, 'You can't save them all, Sullivan. Queens is just the beginning.'" Mike's grip tightened on the radio. The Raven knew they were here. How? The mole in TSA was real, and they were watching every move. Mike looked at Shadow, whose eyes gleamed with determination. "We're not done yet, boy," he said, his voice steady despite the fear clawing at him. Jake was behind that door, and so was the next piece of Black Hawk's plan. But the Raven's words echoed, "You can't save them all." Mike thought of Emily, Jake, and the millions of passengers flying for Thanksgiving. He'd be damned if he let Black Hawk win. The steel door in the Queen's warehouse loomed like a gate to hell. Mike Sullivan gripped Shadow's leash, his heart pounding as the FBI tactical team flanked him and Sarah Nguyen. The keycard from the Blackhawk operative, with its chilling hawk and star logo, had led them here, a basement level where Emily Carter's brother Jake was likely held. Above ground, they'd found EMP bombs capable of crippling America's airports, part of a Russian mafia's plot to paralyze the nation on Thanksgiving. Black Hawk, led by the elusive Raven, was steps ahead, and their latest message, "You can't save them all, Sullivan?" echoed in Mike's mind. Shadow's ears twitched, his nose low, sensing danger. Whatever was behind that door, it wasn't just Jake. It was the next piece of a terror plot that could kill millions. Mike nodded to Sarah, her face set like stone under her FBI cap. "On three," she whispered. The team readied their rifles, flashlights piercing the dark. Shadow growled, a low rumble that sent a shiver down Mike's spine. He thought of Emily, lying in JFK's medical bay, her body a ticking time bomb with a detonator sewn inside. He thought of his sister, Tasha, waiting for him in Brooklyn. "No one dies on my watch," he vowed. 1, 2, 3! The door blasted open and chaos erupted. The basement was a cavern of concrete and shadows, lit by flickering bulbs. Rusted pipes dripped, filling the air with a metallic tang. Mike and Shadow led the way, the FBI team fanning out. Sarah's radio crackled with static, her voice low. Thermals picking up one heat signature, southwest corner. She trailed off, her eyes narrowing. "Wait! There's another moving fast!" Shadow froze, his hackles rising. Before Mike could react, a gunshot rang out, the bullet grazing a pipe above his head. "Down!" Sarah yelled, diving behind a crate. The FBI team returned fire, their beams slashing through the dark, but the shooter was gone, footsteps echoing deeper into the basement. Shadow lunged forward, pulling Mike along. "Go, boy!" Mike shouted, trusting his partner's instincts. Shadow's nose led them to a corner where a figure slumped in a chair, wrists bound, head lolling. Jake Carter. The 18-year-old's face was bruised, his shirt stained with blood, but his chest rose faintly. "He's alive," Mike breathed, cutting Jake's ropes with a knife. Sarah knelt beside him, checking his pulse. "He's weak but stable. We need a medevac now." But Shadow wasn't done. He spun, growling at a stack of crates nearby. Mike's flashlight caught a glint wires, LEDs, another EMP bomb, bigger than the ones upstairs, its timer ticking. 24 hours, 13 minutes. "Sarah, look at this." Mike's voice was tight. "This could take out half of New York's grid, not just JFK. Sarah's face paled. Blackhawk's playing for keeps. She scanned the device, her fingers trembling. "It's wired to a network. If this goes off, it'll trigger the others, LAX, O'Hare, Atlanta." Mike's mind raced. 24 hours to stop a nationwide blackout, with a mole in TSA feeding Blackhawk their every move. He radioed JFK. "Ramirez, we've got Jake and another bomb. Get a bomb squad to Pier 12, Queens, stat." Ramirez's voice crackled back, but something was off, too calm, too clipped. "Copy that, Sullivan. Bomb squad's en route." Mike frowned, a chill creeping up his spine. Ramirez had been his partner for 3 years, always quick with a joke, but now. Was she the mole Vinny hinted at? At JFK's medical bay, Emily lay under Dr. Patel's watchful eye, an IV steadying her after the shock of the detonator's discovery. The device in her abdomen, a high-tech horror sewn by Blackhawk, was still active, its circuits humming faintly. Linda, the TSA officer, sat by her side, notepad in hand. "Emily, you mentioned the Raven," Linda said gently. "Anything else you remember? A face? A place?" Emily's eyes were distant, haunted. "It was dark. In that warehouse. They blindfolded me, but I heard him. The Raven." Her voice shook. His voice was like ice, saying, "The senator's in our pocket. JFK's just the start. I didn't see his face, but he knew everything. My name, Jake's school, even my mom's address. She clutched Linda's hand. They're not just criminals, they're monsters. Before Linda could respond, a monitor beeped wildly. Patel rushed over, her face grim. The detonator, she whispered. It's emitting a signal intermittent, like it's trying to connect to something. Emily's eyes widened, her breath hitching. Is it going to go off? Patel shook her head, but her voice was unsteady. Not yet, but we need a surgical team. If it fully activates, it could hack air traffic control. Or worse. Linda radioed Mike, her voice urgent. Sullivan, the device in Emily's body, it's waking up. We're losing time. Mike's heart sank, but he couldn't leave the basement yet. Jake was safe, but the EMP bomb and the shooter were still threats. And Ramirez's strange tone gnawed at him. Back in the basement, Shadow's growls grew frantic, his nose pointing to a hidden panel in the wall. Mike pried it open, revealing a control box wired to the EMP bomb. But something else caught his eye, a USB drive, tucked inside, marked with the Black Hawk logo. Sarah grabbed it, her eyes narrowing. This could be their playbook. She plugged it into a secure FBI tablet, and a voice file auto-played a deep, gravelly voice, cold as a Siberian winter. JFK is the spark, the voice said. LAX, O'Hare. Atlanta will follow. The senator ensures our clearance. Sullivan's a problem, but he won't stop us. The Raven sees all. The file cut off, leaving Mike and Sarah in stunned silence. The Raven and a senator. Black Hawk wasn't just a mafia. They had tentacles in Washington. Before Mike could process it, Shadow barked sharply, spinning toward the shadows. A figure bolted from behind a crate officer, Maria Ramirez, her TSA uniform unmistakable, a pistol in her hand. Ramirez, Mike's voice broke, betrayal cutting like a knife. She'd been at his side for years, shared beers after shifts, even met Tasha. How could she? Stay back, Mike, Ramirez shouted, her eyes wild. You don't understand what they can do. She fired a warning shot, the bullet sparking off concrete, and sprinted for a side exit. The FBI team gave chase, but she vanished into the maze of crates, leaving Mike reeling. Shadow whined, nudging his leg as if sensing his pain. Sarah grabbed Mike's arm. We'll find her, but we've got bigger problems. She pointed to the EMP bomb's timer, now at 24 hours, 8 minutes. And then a new sound, a low hum from the control box, followed by a red flash. It's a trap, Sarah yelled, diving for cover. The explosion rocked the basement, a fireball erupting from the control box. Mike threw himself over Jake, shielding him as debris rained down. Shadow barked, leaping to Mike's side, unscathed but frantic. The FBI team scrambled, some coughing, others shouting. Sarah emerged from the dust, blood trickling from a cut on her forehead. Everyone okay? She called, her voice hoarse. Mike checked Jake, who groaned, still alive. We're good, he said, his ears ringing. But the USB drive was intact, clutched in Sarah's hand. And Ramirez was gone, her betrayal a wound deeper than the explosion. Mike's jaw clenched. She's working for Raven. And I trusted her. As the FBI secured the basement, medics airlifted Jake to JFK's medical bay, where Emily waited, her heart in her throat. Mike and Shadow returned to the warehouse's surface. The EMP bomb disarmed for now, but the timer's warning lingered. 24 hours. Sarah played the USB's voice file again, the Raven's words chilling. The senator ensures our clearance. Mike's mind raced. A traitor in Washington, Ramirez on the loose, and Emily's detonator waking up. Black Hawk was closing in. Mike's radio buzzed with a new message, patched through from Vinny's burner phone at JFK. The text flashed, "You saved one, Sullivan. Millions are next." Mike's blood ran cold. The Raven was taunting him, and the mention of millions meant one thing. Blackhawk's plan was far from over. Shadow growled, his eyes fixed on the horizon, as if sensing the storm ahead. Mike looked at Sarah, his voice steel. "We find Ramirez, we find Raven. This ends now." But deep down, he knew the truth. Blackhawk was watching, and the clock was ticking. The Queen's warehouse was a smoldering ruin, its basement scarred by Blackhawk's trap. Mike Sullivan stood in the cold November air, his breath visible, Shadow at his side. The EMP bomb they'd found, capable of blacking out New York's grid, was disarmed. But its timer haunted him. 18 hours left until Thanksgiving, when Blackhawk planned to strike JFK, LAX, O'Hare, and Atlanta. Jake Carter, Emily's brother, was safe, airlifted to JFK's medical bay. But the cost was high. Officer Maria Ramirez, Mike's partner and friend, was a traitor, a mole feeding Blackhawk their every move. Her betrayal cut deeper than the explosion's debris, and her words, "You don't understand what they can do," echoed like a warning. The Raven, Blackhawk's shadowy leader, was still out there, and Mike knew the fight was far from over. Back at JFK, the terminal buzzed with pre-Thanksgiving chaos, but Mike's focus was razor-sharp. Sarah Nguyen, the FBI agent who'd breached the warehouse with him, met him at the tarmac, her face grim. "We've got a bomb squad analyzing the EMP device," she said, her voice low. "But there's more. Emily's detonator, it's still active and it's linked to the bomb we found. If we don't neutralize both, we're looking at a catastrophe." Sarah's eyes flicked to Shadow, who stood alert, his nose twitching. "Your dog's our best shot, Sullivan." Mike nodded, his jaw tight. He thought of Emily, a pawn in Blackhawk's game, her body turned into a weapon. He thought of Ramirez, once a sister in arms, now a fugitive. And he thought of the Raven, a ghost who knew his name. "Let's get to work," he said, leading Shadow back to the heart of JFK. The clock was ticking and millions of lives hung in the balance. In the medical bay, Emily sat beside Jake, her hand clutching his. The 18-year-old was pale, his bruises stark under the fluorescent lights, but he was alive. Tears streamed down Emily's face as she whispered, "I thought I'd lost you." Jake managed a weak smile. "You didn't give up, Em. That's what kept me going." Their reunion was a flicker of warmth in a storm of fear, but it was short-lived. Dr. Annika Patel burst in, her face ashen. "Emily, the detonator!" She hesitated, her voice trembling. "It's sending a stronger signal now, pulsing every 10 seconds. It's trying to sync with something, maybe the EMP bombs." Emily's eyes widened, her breath hitching. "Can you get it out?" she asked, her voice barely audible. Patel nodded, but her eyes betrayed doubt. "We've called in a surgical team and a bomb tech, but it's risky. One wrong move and it could trigger." Mike, arriving with Shadow, overheard. His stomach twisted. The detonator wasn't just a trigger for bombs. It could hack air traffic control, crashing planes across the Northeast. He knelt beside Emily, his voice steady. "We're not losing you, Emily, or Jake. We'll fix this." He glanced at Shadow, whose eyes burned with focus, as if promising to fight alongside him. Patel led them to a secure operating room where a bomb tech, Captain Elena Torres, waited. Torres, a wiry woman with a scar across her cheek, studied the ultrasound. "This tech is Russian, military grade," she said, her voice clipped. "The detonator's got a fail-safe. If it senses tampering, it'll send a kill signal. We need to jam its frequency while we operate." Mike's mind raced. "Jam the signal, save Emily, and stop the EMP bombs all in 18 hours. Shadow whined, nudging Mike's leg, his nose twitching toward a medical cart. Mike followed, finding a faint hum from a device under a tray, a tiny transmitter. Blackhawk's design, likely planted to monitor Emily. "Sarah!" Mike called, holding it up. Sarah's face hardened. "They're still watching us." She smashed the transmitter. But the message was clear. Black Hawk had eyes everywhere. At JFK's command center, Mike and Sarah met the bomb squad, led by Torres, who'd moved the EMP bomb from Queens to a secure hangar. Shadow circled the device, his growls low, his nose locked on a panel. Mike pried it open, revealing a secondary circuit board, its LEDs blinking in sync with Emily's detonator. "It's a handshake," Torres said, her voice tight. "The bomb and the detonator are paired. If one goes off, the other follows." Mike's blood ran cold. Neutralizing the bomb meant neutralizing Emily's detonator and vice versa. But Shadow's ears perked, his nose pointing to a faint scratch on the bomb's casing. A Black Hawk logo with a serial number. Sarah scanned it with an FBI database. "It's a match," she said, her eyes wide. "This batch was shipped to LAX and O'Hare last week. Black Hawk's already deployed more." Mike radioed JFK's TSA chief. "Alert LAX and O'Hare, check every cargo shipment for Black Hawk's logo. We've got 18 hours. But his words were cut off by a new alert from the medical bay. Patel's voice crackled. "Sullivan, the detonator signal just spiked. We're prepping surgery now." Mike grabbed Shadow and sprinted, Sarah close behind. Emily's life and the Northeast's skies were on the line. In the operating room, Emily lay under bright lights, her face pale but resolute. Jake sat nearby, his hand on hers, whispering, "You're stronger than they are, Em." Patel and Torres worked in tandem, a surgical robot poised over Emily's abdomen. A jamming device hummed, blocking the detonator's signal, but its lights flickered, unstable. "We've got a 30-minute window," Torres said, her voice steady. After that, the failsafe could kick in. Mike stood outside, Shadow at his side, watching through a glass window. His heart pounded, memories of his Marine days flashing, friends lost to IEDs, promises to protect broken. He couldn't lose Emily, not after Jake, not after Ramirez's betrayal. Shadow whined, sensing his tension, and Mike knelt, stroking his fur. "We're in this together, boy," he murmured, drawing strength from his partner. The surgery was a dance with death. Patel's scalpel moved with precision, guided by the robot, while Torres monitored the detonator's circuits. At 15 minutes, a monitor beeped wildly. "It's resisting the jammer," Torres warned, sweat beading on her forehead. Patel's hands shook, but she pressed on, exposing the walnut-sized device, its wires glinting like a spider's web. "Almost there," she whispered. At 25 minutes, the jamming device flickered, and the detonator's LEDs pulsed red. "It's sinking!" Torres shouted, diving for a backup jammer. Emily gasped, her eyes wide with fear. Jake squeezed her hand, his voice breaking. "Stay with me, Em." Mike pounded the glass, helpless, as Shadow barked, his voice echoing through the sterile hall. With seconds to spare, Torres activated the backup jammer, and Patel extracted the detonator, dropping it into a lead-lined box. The monitor stabilized, and Emily exhaled, tears streaming down her face. Jake sobbed, hugging her as Patel slumped, exhausted. "She's clear," Patel said, her voice hoarse. Mike let out a breath he didn't know he'd held, patting Shadow. "Good boy." But the fight wasn't over. Back at the command center, Sarah intercepted a tip. Ramirez was spotted at a parking lot near JFK, meeting a Black Hawk courier. Mike and Shadow raced to the scene, the lot a maze of cars under flickering streetlights. Sarah's FBI team flanked them, but Mike's focus was singular. Ramirez wasn't just a mole, she was family, a Marine who'd saved his life in Fallujah. Why? They found her near a black SUV, handing a hard drive to a scarred man in a hoodie. "Freeze!" Mike shouted, drawing his sidearm. The courier bolted, but Shadow was faster, tackling him to the asphalt, teeth bared. Ramirez spun, her pistol raised, her eyes meeting Mike's. "Don't make me do this, Maria," Mike said, his voice raw. Ramirez's face twisted, guilt and fear warring. "You think I wanted this?" she spat. "Black Hawk has my daughter, Mike. They took her when I wouldn't play ball." She lowered her gun, tears falling. The hard drive, it's everything. Raven's plans, his contacts, even Senator Richard Hale. He's their man in D.C. Mike's heart stopped. Senator Hale, a vocal advocate for defense contracts, was Black Hawk's puppet? Before he could respond, Ramirez tossed the hard drive to him and ran, vanishing into the night. Sarah cuffed the courier, but Mike's eyes were on the drive. Shadow growled, sensing the weight of what it held. Back at JFK, Sarah plugged the hard drive into a secure laptop. A video loaded a grainy feed, showing only a silhouette in a dark room, a Black Hawk logo on the wall. The voice was the Raven's, distorted but unmistakable. "Super Bowl Sunday will be our stage," he said, his tone chilling. "Hale's clearance ensures our devices reach the stadium. Millions will watch and millions will fall." The video cut off, leaving Mike and Sarah in stunned silence. Mike's mind raced. The Super Bowl, America's biggest event, was 2 months away, but Black Hawk was already moving. The hard drive listed shipments to LAX and O'Hare, matching the EMP bomb serial numbers. They'd stopped JFK's device, but others were out there waiting to strike. And Hale, how deep did his influence go? As Mike briefed the FBI, his radio buzzed. A call patched through from Ramirez's burner phone, now in evidence. The Raven's voice came through, clear and cold. "You're persistent, Sullivan," he said, a hint of amusement. "Super Bowl will burn, and you can't stop it." The line went dead, leaving Mike gripping the radio, Shadow growling at his side. Emily and Jake were safe, the detonator gone, the EMP bomb neutralized. But Black Hawk's shadow loomed larger than ever, and the Raven was watching. Mike looked at Shadow, his resolve hardening. "We're not done, boy," he said, his voice steel. The fight for America's skies and its soul was just beginning. The sun broke through the clouds over JFK International Airport, casting a golden glow on Terminal 4. It was November 25th, 2025, Thanksgiving Eve, and the chaos of travel had softened into a hum of gratitude. In a cordoned-off area near Gate 17, where Shadow's barks had sparked a battle against Black Hawk, a crowd gathered passengers, TSA officers, even the mayor of New York. They were here for one reason: to honor a hero. Shadow, the German shepherd who'd sniffed out a terror plot, stood proud beside Mike Sullivan, his fur gleaming, his eyes bright. Emily Carter and her brother Jake, now healing, stood nearby, their faces lit with pride. But beneath the celebration, a shadow lingered. The Raven, Black Hawk's mastermind, was still out there, his plan for the Super Bowl looming like a storm. Mike adjusted his TSA uniform, his chest tight with emotion. The past 48 hours had been a crucible. Shadow's barks at Emily, the detonator in her belly, the EMP bombs in Queens, Ramirez's betrayal, and Senator Richard Hale's treachery. They'd saved JFK, Emily, and Jake, but Black Hawk's reach stretched to LAX, O'Hare, and now the Super Bowl. Mike glanced at Shadow, who nudged his hand as if saying, "We're not done yet." Mike smiled, patting his partner. "You're the star today, boy." The mayor stepped to a podium, his voice booming. Shadow's courage stopped a terror plot that could have crippled our nation. "On behalf of New York, I present him the Canine Hero Medal." The crowd erupted, clapping as a gold medal was draped around Shadow's neck. Emily wiped tears, whispering to Jake, "He saved us both." Jake nodded, his voice hoarse. "He's family now." Mike's eyes stung, pride mixing with resolve. Shadow had earned this, but the fight wasn't over. As cameras flashed, Sarah Nguyen approached, her FBI badge glinting. "Nice moment, Sullivan," she said, her voice low. "But we've got work. The hard drive from Ramirez, it's a gold mine." She led Mike to a secure office where analysts pored over data. Shadow trailed, his metal clinking, his nose alert. The fight for America's skies was about to take a darker turn. In the FBI command room, Sarah opened a file from Ramirez's hard drive. "Black Hawk's Super Bowl plan is real," she said, her face grim. "They've hidden EMP bombs in stadium equipment lighting rigs, scoreboards approved through a fake contract signed by Senator Hale." The screen showed blueprints of Hard Rock Stadium in Miami, red dots marking bomb locations. "If these go off, the Super Bowl becomes a blackout zone, communications down, panic, thousands trapped." Mike's stomach churned. The Super Bowl, set for February 9th, 2026, drew millions fans, families, even the president. He thought of his sister, Tasha, who'd watched every game since they were kids. "How'd Hale pull this off?" Mike asked, his voice tight. Sarah scrolled to a contract, Hale's signature bold. "He chairs the Senate Defense Committee," she said. "His contracts bypass security checks. Black Hawk used him to smuggle parts through U.S. ports." Shadow growled, his nose twitching toward a corner. Mike followed, finding a crate marked Medical Supplies Russia. His pulse spiked. "Sarah, check this." She scanned the crate, revealing a Black Hawk logo hidden under tape. Inside were circuit boards, identical to the EMP bombs from Queens. "They're still shipping," Sarah whispered, her voice shaking. "This came through JFK yesterday." Mike radioed the TSA chief. "Lock down all international cargo. Black Hawk's moving again." But his words were cut off by a call from the medical bay. Dr. Patel's voice was urgent. "Sullivan, Emily, and Jake are fine, but we found a note in Jake's clothes from Ramirez." Mike's heart sank. Ramirez, the friend who'd betrayed him, was still reaching out. He grabbed Shadow and headed to the bay, the metal clinking with every step. At the medical bay, Emily and Jake sat with Patel, a crumpled note on the table. Mike read it, his hands trembling. Ramirez's handwriting was shaky. "Mike, I'm sorry. They have my daughter, Sophia, 8 years old. Black Hawk forced me. The Raven's not just a criminal, he's ex-KGB, ran ops in D.C. in the 90s. He owns Hale. Forgive me." Mike's throat tightened. Ramirez, his Marine sister, had saved his life in Iraq, shared his dreams of a better world. Now she was a pawn, her daughter a hostage. Emily's voice broke the silence. "She helped us in her way." She touched the note, her eyes soft. She didn't want this. Jake nodded, his bruises fading but his resolve strong. "We owe her, Mike. Find her daughter." Mike met their gazes, his voice firm. "I will." Shadow whined, nudging his leg as if sealing the promise. Sarah burst in, her face pale. "We've got a lead on Hale. He's at his New York office, Midtown, right now." Mike's jaw clenched. Hale, the senator who'd sold out his country, was the key to the Raven. He grabbed Shadow and followed Sarah to an FBI van, the city's skyline blurring past. The Super Bowl was 2 months away, but Black Hawk wasn't waiting. The raid on Hale's office was swift, FBI agents storming the high-rise with Mike and Shadow in tow. The senator's suite was lavish marble floors, a view of Manhattan but empty. Hale had fled, leaving papers shredded and a laptop smashed. Sarah cursed, scanning the wreckage. "He knew we were coming." Shadow growled, his nose locked on a desk drawer. Mike opened it, finding a hidden compartment with a microchip, a listening device. Black Hawk's design. "There's still one step ahead," Mike said, crushing the chip. But Shadow barked, pawing at a monitor on the wall. Sarah rebooted it, and a video loaded a dark room, a silhouette, the Black Hawk logo glowing. The Raven's voice, distorted but icy, filled the room. "Super Bowl is our canvas, Sullivan," he said, a chuckle in his tone. "Hale was useful but expendable. You'll see my face soon." The screen went black, leaving Mike's blood cold. Sarah's radio crackled. "Agent Nguyen, we've got Hale's car, JFK private hangar." Mike sprinted, Shadow at his heels, the FBI team scrambling. At the hangar, Hale's limo was parked, but the senator was gone, a jet already airborne. Sarah checked the flight log. "He's headed to D.C., she said, her voice tight. "He's running to the Raven." Mike's mind raced. Hale, the Raven, the Super Bowl. Black Hawk's plan was a hydra, growing new heads with every cut. Shadow whined, sniffing a suitcase left in the limo. Mike opened it, finding a single file. Project Firestorm Super Bowl. It detailed EMP bombs, crowd control failures, and a chilling note. Hale ensures VIP access. The Raven wasn't just targeting fans, he wanted the nation's leaders. That night, Mike brought Emily and Jake to Brooklyn, to Tasha's brownstone, for a quiet Thanksgiving. The table was set with turkey, cornbread, and sweet potato pie, Tasha's laughter filling the air. Emily smiled, her strength returning, while Jake teased Shadow, who lay with his metal gleaming. "To heroes," Tasha toasted, raising a glass to Mike and Shadow. "And to family." Mike clinked her glass, his heart full but heavy. Black Hawk was still out there, and Ramirez's daughter was still a captive. As they ate, Sarah called. "Sullivan, we've got a problem." Her voice was grim. "Another package at JFK from St. Petersburg, Russia. Black Hawk logo marked Super Bowl delivery." Mike's fork froze. He stepped outside, the Brooklyn night cold, Shadow at his side. At JFK's cargo bay, he and Sarah opened the crate, finding more EMP components, a red star etched on each. A note was taped inside in the Raven's script. "The game begins, Sullivan." Mike looked at Shadow, his resolve unbreakable. The Super Bowl was coming, and Black Hawk's shadow loomed larger than ever. The Raven was out there, watching, waiting. But Mike and Shadow were ready. The fight for America's soul had just begun.